She said, "Your inheritance belongs to us now. Transfer it, or we're done." I replied, "You're absolutely right about one thing." Then I transferred everything into a trust she could never touch. When she discovered what us actually meant legally, her lawyer went silent. I, 36 male, got the call about my grandmother's passing on a Wednesday morning. She was 91, had lived a full life, and went peacefully in her sleep. I cried for about an hour, then started making arrangements. My grandmother raised me after my parents died in a car accident when I was 7. She was a retired school teacher who lived frugally, drove the same Toyota Camry for 18 years, and clipped coupons until the day she died. What I didn't know, what nobody in the family knew, was that my grandfather, who passed 20 years ago, had made some very smart investments in the 1970s that my grandmother never touched. She just let them sit there, compounding. The estate attorney called me a week after the funeral. As her only grandchild, my mom was an only child, I was the sole beneficiary. The amount? $847,000 in various investment accounts, plus the house worth around $320,000. After taxes, fees, and settling some minor debts, I was looking at roughly $1.1 million. I told my wife that same evening. We've been married for 5 years, together for 7. She works in retail management. I'm a mid-level accountant at a manufacturing firm. Combined, we make around $140,000 a year. Not struggling, but not wealthy either. We rent a nice apartment, have 2 cars with payments, and maybe $30,000 in savings. Her reaction to the news was interesting. First, tears and sympathy. "Oh, honey, I'm so sorry about your grandmother. She was such a sweet woman." Then, about 4 minutes later, "Wait, how much did you say?" I repeated the number. Her eyes went wide. That's life-changing money. We could buy a house, pay off the cars, take a real vacation finally. We, us, our. I noticed but didn't comment. Grief was still fresh. Maybe I was being sensitive. The estate took about 3 months to settle. During that time, my wife's behavior shifted in ways I couldn't ignore. She started sending me Zillow listings for houses way outside our realistic budget. Not starter homes, McMansions. 5 bedrooms, pools, 3-car garages. $650,000 properties. "We can afford it now," she'd say when I pushed back. "Why are you being so conservative?" She bought a new handbag without telling me. $2,400. When I found the receipt, she shrugged. "I deserve nice things. We're going to be rich anyway." The money hadn't even hit my account yet. But the real moment came last Thursday. We were eating dinner. Take-out Thai, nothing special. When she put down her fork and looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Calculating. Cold. "We need to talk about the inheritance." "Okay," I said carefully. "I've been doing some research. In this state, inheritance is considered separate property unless it's commingled with marital assets, which means if you put it in a separate account, I'd have no legal claim to it." I nodded slowly. "That's generally accurate." "That's not fair," she said, voice hardening. "We're married. What's yours is mine. That money belongs to us now. You need to transfer it into our joint account, or at least put my name on it." I stared at her. "You've been researching how to claim my grandmother's money?" "I've been researching how to protect our future. Don't twist this. My grandmother left that money to me. Not us. Me." Her face flushed red. "So you're going to keep it all for yourself, after everything I've contributed to this marriage? What exactly have you contributed that entitles you to my dead grandmother's life savings?" That was the wrong thing to say. She exploded. 5 years of my life. I cook. I clean. I supported you when your hours got cut. I stayed when most women would have left. Left for what? We have a good life. A mediocre life. And now we finally have a chance at something better, and you're already planning to cut me out. She stood up, chair scraping loudly. "Transfer that money into a joint account, or we're done. I'm serious. I'll file for divorce and take half of everything anyway." I looked at her, really looked, at the woman I'd loved for 7 years who was now threatening to divorce me unless I handed over my dead grandmother's money. "You're absolutely right about one thing," I said quietly. She paused. "What?" "Priorities matter, and I know exactly what to do with that inheritance now." She smiled, thinking she'd won. "Good, I knew you'd see reason." I didn't say anything else. Just finished my dinner. The next morning, I took a personal day and visited an estate planning attorney. Spent 4 hours in that office. Cost me $3,200 in legal fees, but it was the best money I've ever spent. Update 1 week later. A lot happened. Let me break it down. The estate attorney helped me set up what's called a spendthrift trust. For those who don't know, this type of trust has some very specific protections. The assets inside it are shielded from creditors, lawsuits, and, crucially, divorce proceedings. Here's how it works. I'm not the direct owner of the inheritance anymore. The trust owns it. I'm the beneficiary, meaning I can receive distributions from it, but the principal itself is protected. The trustee, in this case a professional fiduciary company, not me or any family member, controls when and how money gets distributed. The attorney explained that because the inheritance was never commingled with marital assets, it went directly from my grandmother's estate into the trust. My wife would have virtually no claim to it in a divorce. The trust was established before any funds touched our shared finances. I transferred everything, all $1.1 million, into the trust. Then I went home and waited. My wife had been unusually sweet that week, clearly thinking her ultimatum had worked. She'd already started planning our home purchase, talking about neighborhoods, school districts. We don't have kids, pool contractors. Friday evening, she brought it up again. So when does the money transfer finalize? We should probably meet with a financial advisor about buying a house. It already transferred, I said. Her face lit up. Really? That's amazing? So it's in our joint account now? No. Pause. What do you mean, no? You said you transferred it. I did. Into a trust. What? A spendthrift trust. It's a legal structure that protects assets from various claims, including divorce. The color drained from her face. What are you talking about? You threatened to divorce me and take half unless I gave you control of my grandmother's money. So I made sure that if you ever follow through on that threat, there's nothing for you to take. She sat there, mouth opening and closing. You can't do that. That's my money too. We're married. Actually, I can. Inheritance is separate property. I never commingled it. And now it's in a trust that I can't even access directly. Only the trustee can make distributions. This is financial abuse, she screamed. No, it's financial protection. There's a difference. She grabbed her phone and called her mother. I could hear the shrieking through the receiver from across the room. Something about me being controlling and hiding assets, and we need to get a lawyer. Great, lawyers it is. Over the next few days, the entitlement reached levels I didn't think were possible. Her mother showed up at our apartment uninvited, walked in like she owned the place. What kind of man denies his wife financial security? She demanded. What kind of wife threatens divorce to extort her husband's inheritance? I replied. That money should be shared. Marriage is a partnership. Partnerships don't typically involve ultimatums and threats. She called me every name in the book. Selfish, greedy, controlling, a little man with a fragile ego. Said her daughter could have done so much better. I just let her rant. When she was done, I said, "Are you finished? Because I have work in the morning." She stormed out. My wife locked herself in the bedroom and didn't speak to me for 2 days. Then came the lawyer letter. Apparently she'd found a divorce attorney willing to take her case. The letter demanded full disclosure of all assets, immediate dissolution of the trust, 50% of all marital property, spousal support for 5 years. My attorney reviewed it and chuckled. Actually chuckled. She can demand whatever she wants, doesn't mean she'll get it. The trust is bulletproof. Her attorney knows this. They're just hoping to intimidate you into settling. I sent back a counter-response. Full asset disclosure? Sure, happy to comply. Dissolution of the trust? Not happening. It's an irrevocable trust. 50% of marital property? Fine. Let's inventory what that actually is. Spousal support? Based on what? She earns $58,000 a year. I earn $82,000. No significant income disparity. The reply from her attorney was noticeably less aggressive. Update 2? 3 weeks later, the divorce proceedings started, and boy did reality hit hard. Our first mediation session was enlightening. My wife showed up expecting to walk away with hundreds of thousands of dollars. Instead, she got a very uncomfortable education in property law. Her attorney had clearly tried to explain the situation beforehand, but she wasn't having it. The trust is just a shell, she insisted. He created it to hide assets. That's fraud. The mediator, a very patient woman in her 60s, responded calmly, "Ma'am, establishing a trust for inherited assets is not fraud. It's estate planning. Your husband received the inheritance as separate property, and he elected to protect it before any commingling occurred. There's no legal mechanism to force dissolution of this trust. But we're married. What's his is mine." That's not actually how property law works. Marriage doesn't automatically entitle either spouse to the other's separate property. My wife looked at her attorney. "Do something." Her attorney, to her credit, tried. "We'd like to argue that the timing of the trust creation, immediately after the defendant's threatening statement, suggests retaliatory intent." My attorney jumped in. "My client created the trust to protect an inheritance after his spouse explicitly threatened divorce unless he transferred the funds to her control. That's not retaliation. That's reasonable protective action." The mediator nodded. "I have to agree. There's nothing improper about an individual protecting separate property from potential claims." My wife started crying. "This isn't fair. I gave him the best years of my life." I wanted to say something about how 30 to 35 aren't exactly the best years, and how threatening divorce for money isn't exactly giving, but I kept quiet. My attorney had advised me to stay calm and not engage emotionally. The mediation ended without resolution, but the writing was on the wall. Over the next 2 weeks, her attorney tried several more approaches. Approach 1. Arguing that I had been planning to share the inheritance and therefore created an implied promise of joint ownership. Response: "No evidence of any such promise. I never added her name to anything or made any commitments." Approach 2. Claiming that my grandmother intended for the money to benefit our marriage. Response: "My grandmother's will explicitly named me as the sole beneficiary. No mention of my wife anywhere." Approach number 3. Demanding an accounting of any funds distributed from the trust that may have benefited marital lifestyle. Response: "The trust has made 0 distributions since its creation." The attorney recommended I wait until the divorce was finalized to take any money out. Each time, her attorney's arguments got weaker, and my wife's behavior got worse. She stopped going to work, got written up twice for no-shows, then put on a final warning. She spent most of her time at her mother's house, apparently strategizing about how to get what's owed to her. Meanwhile, she was still living in our apartment, which I was paying for, eating food I bought, driving a car I made payments on. The entitlement was breathtaking. Her mother called me directly one evening. I shouldn't have answered, but morbid curiosity got the better of me. "My daughter is suffering because of you. Your daughter threatened to divorce me unless I gave her money that wasn't hers. She's experiencing the consequences of that choice." She didn't mean it like that. She was upset. Marriages go through rough patches. She's welcome to apologize and drop the divorce proceedings anytime. You need to give her something. She can't walk away with nothing after 5 years. She's not walking away with nothing. She's walking away with her car, her personal belongings, her retirement account, and half of our minimal marital assets. What she's not walking away with is my grandmother's money. That was never hers to take. You're a monster. I'm a man who protected himself from someone trying to exploit a death in his family for financial gain. Good night. Hung up. Blocked the number. Update 3. Final update. The divorce was finalized last week. Let me tell you how it all shook out. After 2 months of legal back and forth, my wife's attorney finally had what must have been a come-to-Jesus conversation with her. The numbers weren't lying. Total marital assets, excluding my protected inheritance, approximately $67,000. This included our joint savings, my 401k contributions during marriage, her 401k, and the equity in our vehicles. After legal fees, we were looking at maybe $30,000 each. My wife ended up with her car, she took over the remaining payments, her personal property, her retirement accounts, $16,400 in cash from the division of marital assets, after her lawyers cut considerably less, 0 spousal support. Judge found no basis given our similar incomes. 0 claim to the trust whatsoever. Her attorney went silent during the final hearing. Like, actually silent. When the judge asked if there were any additional claims regarding the trust assets, she just shook her head and said, "No, Your Honor." My wife looked like she'd been slapped. She genuinely thought, right up until the end, that some magic legal argument would force me to share that inheritance. Outside the courthouse, she confronted me one final time. "You planned this. You planned this from the beginning." "No," I said honestly. "I planned this from the moment you told me to hand over my dead grandmother's money or you'd divorce me. You gave me a choice between my marriage and my financial security. I chose security. I could have made you happy. You could have just been grateful that I was grieving and supported me instead of calculating your cut. But didn't. You saw dollar signs. You'll regret this. You'll be alone with your money and realize you gave up a real partnership. A real partnership doesn't involve ultimatums and threats. And I won't be alone. I'll be selective. Something I clearly should have been the first time." She didn't have a response to that. Her mother was waiting in the car, glaring daggers at me through the windshield. They drove off. I haven't spoken to either of them since. The trust is still intact. I've taken one distribution, $40,000, to put a down payment on a modest townhouse. Nothing flashy. 3 bedrooms, small backyard, good neighborhood. The rest stays invested, growing slowly. I kept the apartment for 2 more months before moving. Gave notice, paid my final month, left it cleaner than I found it. My ex-wife, according to mutual acquaintances, moved back in with her mother. She lost her job shortly after the divorce. Apparently, the combination of stress and missed workdays caught up with her. Last I heard, she was job hunting and still complaining to anyone who'd listen about how I stole from her. She didn't steal anything from me. I just refused to let her steal from my grandmother. Some people have asked if I feel guilty. The honest answer is no. Here's why. My grandmother worked her entire life. She taught elementary school for 40 years, raised my mother as a single mom after my grandfather died, then raised me after my parents died. She lived frugally, denied herself luxuries, and carefully built that nest egg so that someone she loved would have options in life. She didn't leave that money for a woman who threatened divorce to get her hands on it. She left it for me. I honored her wishes. I protected her legacy. And I removed someone from my life who saw a grieving grandson and calculated her percentage. That's not revenge. That's just clarity.